My friends, thank you for joining us. It is Friday, the 4th day of February, 2011. We're going to be here live for at least the next 3 hours. Obviously, we're going to continue to look at nationwide rolling blackouts, natural gas outages, people freezing inside of their homes. We've seen many of the cases of poor people in the last few years in places like Michigan and New York and, of course, Illinois and Chicago, having their power turned off because they're bankrupt and then being found frozen to death inside of their homes. And this is a very serious situation that we're facing right now. Austin, Texas was blanketed in 2 inches of snow. That's blanketed for folks in central Texas who don't see snow but every few years and normally very light. And normally my 20-minute drive into work took about an hour today, driving 30 miles an hour. The main danger was dodging people who don't know how to drive in the snow. Not that I'm an expert at it, but I grew up in Dallas where it snowed multiple times a year, so a little bit more accustomed to it than all the Californians that have moved to Austin and the Central and South Texans that aren't accustomed to it. It was like playing the video game Frogger driving in, dodging cars, sliding off into the ditch, jumping mediums, slamming on their brakes, going down hills, running into each other. It was quite an adventure coming into work today. And I want to hail my great producer staff. I got a call from Matt Ryan about 7 this morning. He said, "Do you want us to come in?" And I said, "Well, that's up to you. Call everybody. And if we don't get 2 people that want to come in during Blizzard 2011, all part of the global warming," Al Gore says, "we will just remote control a rebroadcast," something we can do from one of my IT guys' home offices. But we are all here. In fact, all 3 of the IT guys are here. They all showed up, and I've got Jaron Neihart and Matt Ryan here with us. Because, again, when you live in a city where you normally, well, when my mom was a kid, it snowed a lot. But then we went through a different sun cycle, and it stopped snowing. In the last 35 years or so, it rarely snows in Austin. So it is pandemonium, bedlam. But thank goodness the sun came out, and a lot of the ice and snow is melting. So the wrecks are only in the hundreds an hour now, not in the thousands. I mean, it was just driving into work. I probably saw 60 crashed vehicles. They were just crashed everywhere, run off the road. It was crazy. And it made me think about just how dependent we are on the infrastructure that the government controls and how they're systematically trying to shut off our infrastructure and how a few days ago when they cut the power off in Austin, there weren't any working lights in many areas, traffic lights. There were no police out directing traffic. Today I did see some police out directing traffic, not out there when the street lights are out radar gunning people who are supposedly speeding 5 miles over the speed limit instead of directing traffic. I did actually see police directing traffic today, which is their main job, is public safety, not just revenue generation. So I saw sheriff's deputies, Travis County, and I saw Austin police as well directing traffic. So good. You're actually doing your job. And that is a big help because there was some traffic lights out and people also getting stuck and wrecking into each other in pileups. And it was good to see the police out there actually engaging in public service and not festooning themselves in paramilitary regalia out there oppressing the population. Enough about Austin, Texas. That's just on the top of my mind. So I'm discussing it. Obviously, huge developments in the whole Egypt situation and what the ramifications mean for the rest of the world, not just the Middle East, North Africa, and what it means about our so-called government that they're trying to put the Muslim Brotherhood in, who are openly calling for war with Israel. I mean, if that isn't your strategy of tension, your strategy of order out of chaos, I don't know what is. Drudge Report's top link to my report that I wrote with Paul Watson yesterday. Obama's blocking of new power plants triggers nationwide blackouts. The Republicans are driving the move to reinstate the Patriot Act. Very treacherous on that front. The UK seeks global accord on cyber behavior. That's a global treaty on controlling the web. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. We're here live, back live Sundays, 4 to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. We have several guests joining us later in the broadcast. We've got a very interesting fellow who has a Genesis radio show on Sundays. He is a pharmacist who for years saw the dangerous drug interactions caused by Big Pharma instructing doctors to put people on so many different forms of medication that interact with each other. There are hundreds of thousands of deaths a year caused by this, and we're going to be talking to Genesis talk show host coming up for about 45 minutes of the second hour today. Pharmacist Ben Fuchs will be joining us, host of the Bright Side program Sunday afternoons on the Genesis Network. And then, of course, we always have our once-a-week visit on the economy and all things New World Order with the one, the only Bob Chapman in the last hour. We're going to have open phones throughout the broadcast. I want to get your view on the Egypt situation, what you think's really happening there. Our government now admits, our supposed government, that they are backing the Muslim Brotherhood. And you know me. I'm not somebody who just gets up here and bashes Muslims all day. I don't have Islamophobia. I understand that the globalists want to have a clash of civilization with those countries and regions, and that they have been putting dictators into place. But I do know that there are such a thing as, quote, Muslim extremists who do want to establish a global Islamic rule, and I'm against that. Just like there are communist Chinese who run China, who want a global system run by the communist Chinese. I'm not against the Chinese people, but I am against the Communist Party China. And there is no doubt the Muslim Brotherhood is where Osama bin Laden came from. There is no doubt that it is a British intel operation. And their own words in AP, Reuters, TV interviews, the heads of the Muslim Brotherhood in Saudi Arabia, in Jordan, in Yemen, in Egypt, all over the Middle East, North Africa, are calling for the overthrow of those governments and the establishment of Islamic law, similar to Iran. And they're calling for breaking their peace treaty with Israel. Now, I'm not a fan of a lot of things that Israel does, and I'm critical. But at the same time, I don't support people that are trying to declare war on another country. I don't want World War III. I want stability. I don't think war is cool. And I don't think Hosni Mubarak is cool either. A horrible dictator we've been very critical of with his torture camps. He's been the darling of the globalist. And if you want to know who runs our government, look at how they prefer dictators to free countries that'll follow their orders. Look at how they've supported Hosni Mubarak as the #1 country where the secret torture camps are that are admitted now. The black sites, the ghost sites. So I'm very freaked out by this. I mean, I know the globalists put Mubarak in 30 years ago. I know that they turn on dictators they put in, but he'd done everything he was told. And the fact that they would overthrow him, which they're really pushing to do right now, and again, the people have legitimate reasons to be upset. Half the population's paid $2 a day or less. They're having their food rations cut via IMF and World Bank policies installed in the last year. And here come the globalists funding El-Baradi and the Muslim Brotherhood and others to use the crisis they've helped create to overthrow Hosni Mubarak and put in a new system. This is very, very serious, and I'm just stunned by it, quite frankly. I mean, I understand the multi-level chess that the New World Order social engineers are engaged in, but still, to actually see it unfold is just amazing. So we're going to be going over the latest on that issue. Also, an incredible report that we knew was coming, and it integrates in with what's happening in Europe, in the United States, and in China. UK seeks global accord on cyber behavior. That means a global accord, cyber rules. You don't criticize your government. You don't make people angry. Same thing we've been hearing from the Democrats. You don't criticize government or you're going to cause another Tucson shooting. It's this attack on free speech, and they're now pushing that through via internet too. We're going to be breaking that down as well. But the first thing I want to direct you towards, if you'd like to follow along with us, is thedrudgereport.com. And we, of course, have all these same articles posted up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, but they're kind of smattered out there. If you want to get a full spectrum analysis of what's going on, the best place right now is the top of DrudgeReport.com. New Mexico declares state of emergency over natural gas shortage. Second headline, Texas residents asked to limit use. Third headline, Outage in Arizona of natural gas to major cities like Tucson. Another headline, San Diego shortage. Usage at record high in Utah. California utility told to cut pipeline pressures. Shell Oil postpones drilling in Arctic. Democratic senator blames White House. Mexico cancels offer to send electricity to the United States because they're running out because of the cold weather. Obama's blocking of new plants triggers nationwide blackouts. That's the bottom link there at the top links at the top of Drudge. And you can link through to our prisonplanet.com article that is excellent that Paul Watson and I put together yesterday. But I had a lot of notes I sent Watson that I wanted to add to the story that he got busy and didn't add. He just has where the EPA is trying to shut down Texas power plants, blocking new ones opening. But I also sent Watson links where they're shutting them down in Georgia that are already built, South Dakota, scores of plants in Kansas, the governor's order a year and a half ago, links to power plants being shut down all over the United States. Those are being added right now to that article so that you can see the clear evidence. And, of course, there's the video clip of Obama saying, you go ahead and build a coal-powered plant. We're going to put taxes on you so high that you're going to go bankrupt. Now, people say, oh, well, he's doing that to save us from carbon dioxide. Well, if you believe carbon dioxide's causing global warming and killing the earth, why then do the globalists push to not have any sanctions on Mexico, China, India, and again, 160-plus other third-world countries who are building coal-powered plants as fast as they can that don't have the clean scrubbers that the United States uses? Well, then you read deeper and you learn that Obama has given the biggest builder of coal-powered plants in the world, General Electric, and that's the new head of his economic councils, the former CEO of General Electric, a complete waiver to do whatever they want. So other plants that are finished or almost complete, $3.2 billion, enough to supply 2 million people a day with power. A $3+ billion mega clean-burning coal plant in Corpus Christi, Energy City, down there on our coast to supply South Texas, growing South Texas, and they're talking about blocking it in the Houston Chronicle, and the feds are in there currently blocking the thing being fired up. That is economic warfare. That is siege against our country. And those aren't just words. I'm not just using those words to be shocking. That's what this is. In fact, I can't figure out words to describe how incredible this is and how it's not getting more attention. But, you know, I didn't say yesterday on air, boy, I hope Drudge links to our Obama blocking off plants triggers nationwide blackouts, but I basically said a little prayer that it would end up there. You know why? Because Drudge sets the news agenda. It's one of the few places where every time he covers something, it breaks out into the mainstream and becomes a major issue. He took our reportage on TSA, posted it 4 months ago, 3 months ago, got it driving, and now we've got a chance of defeating it. And it's not that I even want the attention for prisonplanet.com and the millions of additional clicks we'll get just off that one link. It's that I genuinely don't like being a slave. I'm genuinely angry. I genuinely woke up at 3 in the morning and saw it snowing outside and was walking around the house drinking water, getting angry about Austin, Texas last year passing $3+ billion. I don't remember the headline from Austin Energy. I think it was 3.6. AP ran it. So did News Radio 590 KLBJ, the press release by Austin Energy. Will you headline Austin Energy to increase prices by $3.6 billion in the next 3 years? Point is, if the UN can't get the Congress to put into place the Kyoto Protocol adoption to bring us under UN control, Obama just uses the EPA without law to go in and shut power plants down or not allow new power plants to be constructed. But then his inside buddies, the globalist insiders, they get to continue to build. And then our power prices go up, our factories, our businesses can't compete with China, Mexico, India, and others who don't have these handcuffs on them. And they know exactly what they're doing. And it's about his insider buddies getting away with this. But I'm fundamentally angry. A year and a half ago at the Copenhagen, Denmark summit, when they had the United Nations there, and they openly came out and said, and Schwarzenegger led the delegation, they said, don't worry. We read the headlines at the time, if you want to pull them up, just Schwarzenegger to lead states and cities to implement Kyoto and bypass Congress. That was one of the headlines. And he was there going, what we're going to do is go to the cities and the states and set up the taxing system to save the earth and stop the water rising and California grapes dying. That's a quote, actually. Paraphrase, I remember it's almost word for word. But the point is, then they came into Austin right after that, bought off the corrupt city council that should be in prison for so many things they do, and they just announced, we're going to go ahead with the carbon taxes, $3+ billion over the next 3 years. And then now every employee I've got here goes, yeah, in my apartment, my power bill used to be $200 a month. It's $600. It's $800. My power bill used to be $600. Now it's like $1,500, $2,000 a month. My water bill went up. It's all just carbon taxes that they just slap on top there. And you know what? I'm angry. We're going to open the phones up in the next segment. If you'd like to call on any issue on Open Line Friday, I'd love to hear from you. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. And we'll get you up and on the air. But the point I was trying to make before we ran into the break is this. I desperately want justice. I desperately want freedom. I desperately want to wake people up to the fraud of the globalist, because what they're doing is so naked, out in the open, so ridiculously corrupt that if we simply point it out, get our people elected at the state, local, and federal level, push the courts to do the right thing, we'll defeat the government takeover of health care. We'll defeat the government carbon taxes. We defeated it in Congress. They're just illegally, through the executive, through tyranny, forcing it through. We've defeated their attempts to take our guns on many fronts. Most Americans now have gone from 50-50 or 45-55, actually the majority in some polls, in Roe v. Wade 37 years ago, being for abortion, to now over 70% being against it. We have the truth. It doesn't matter how slick their propaganda arms are. So when I talk about Drudge linking to our Obama's blocking of new plants triggers nationwide blackouts, when I say I appreciate that, it's because I want to win. I want to beat these people really bad. They're crooks, and I'm tired of them. And I salute Matt Drudge for his courage. I also salute you, the listeners, more than anybody. We couldn't do any of this without you. This launch pad for freedom that is Infowars.com, that is the films, that is the syndicated radio show. Because you made that search term, Obama triggers blackouts, #1, and I saw, it had to be more than 50 articles, I didn't count them all up, of news covering it and talking about it, and we got this central issue out there. I mean, I played the clip yesterday. In fact, if you can, cue it up, the 13-second clip. There's a bunch of others of Obama and Biden and others saying, yeah, we're going to shut down all coal-powered plants. It's our mission to bankrupt them. And then they lie and say they're toxic. They say carbon dioxide's toxic. It's not. But they've got to go after carbon dioxide because there's nothing else coming out of these things. Oh, they're dirty in China and Mexico and other places. No controls on them like they were here 80 years ago. But they send the smoke left over from the coal that's burned to turn the big turbines in the water that generates electricity. You know, they boil the water with the coal, turn the turbines. It's similar to hydroelectric, basically. It's a form of that, but generated by the coal burning. And they send it through layer after layer after layer of tubing with water spraying through it, and it takes it all out. Now, do they go store that toxic waste? No. They put it in your water. But see, Obama's not worried about that. Oh, yeah, that's where sodium fluoride comes from. The so-called thing they call sodium fluoride, the hundreds of leftover horrible ingredients of coal are then put into the water supply. Is there something better than coal? Yes. Do I think we should try to move away from petroleum? products, yes, but our whole society is designed and built around it, and the globalists aren't trying to put us onto clean energies. They're only directing federal funds worldwide into insider crony operations of Al Gore, Bill Clinton, George Soros, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers on record. And for every job in Spain created with green jobs, it costs 2 jobs, the Spanish government admitted last year. And it doesn't supply the type of power you need. You lose power when you generate it out on the plains or on the coast and send it hundreds of miles in to major cities. You lose that power going over the power lines. I mean, this is so simple. It isn't a good system the way they've currently designed it. And they could never, the studies have shown, get enough of this wind to run our society. And it's not fair that 160-plus third-world countries don't have to make these carbon cuts, but we do. And then you find out it's a vertical integration system where General Electric and others get exemptions on their plants and their building of plants, and their competition doesn't. And who runs Obama's Economic Council and sets policy for him? The former head of General Electric. Who runs the White House as the chief of staff now? One of the Daley mob brothers, of course, of Goldman Sachs. J.P. Morgan. Forget which one it is. The point is that through government, they get to engineer sweetheart deals for themselves that are illegal. And I go back to it. Over 500 waivers. I haven't counted in a few months. It was over 500 2 months ago. To giant companies who don't have to buy insurance for their employees, but your company does. And if this health care gets implemented this year, I'm going to have to lay people off. Or say, okay, I got to take a 30-year paycheck to pay for this because I'm going to match it. And now we got to buy you this insurance. But don't worry, other companies that get waivers, they will be able to outcompete myself and everybody else because they don't have to get it. I mean, this is mafia government. All right, we're going to come back into your phone calls, get into the latest terror hype they're pushing, more moves to censor the internet. Stay with us. Again, our report, Obama blocking of new power plants triggers nationwide blackouts. This is the globalists strategically, only in Europe, the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the rich Western nations, slowly but surely shutting off our infrastructure. Continuing here with some of the Egypt news, and I'm going to your phone calls. Millions stage anti-Mubarak protest, Press TV is reporting. They're saying, no, they want him to leave now, this weekend. They don't want him to wait, the Western-installed dictator, until September. Mubarak says he's worried about chaos. And quite frankly, there will be chaos with all these CIA-funded and Israeli and British-funded groups fighting for control. That way the globalists win either way, no matter who gets in, because they run them all. Continuing here with the situation over there, there's continual clashes going on. There's power outages all over the United States, as I mentioned earlier. Borderlands residents asked to limit use of natural gas on the Texas-Mexico border. Thousands of New Mexicans without natural gas service, Associated Press. Mexico cancels offer to send electricity to Texas. They gave us power for 2 days because they're allowed to build power plants, but now because of the cold weather, they're running short. That's why Texas is running short, supplying Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kansas, Missouri, areas of Louisiana, areas of New Mexico, Texas, the biggest supplier in the United States. Tucson has a natural gas outage as well in Arizona, out to 14,000 people. Thin natural gas supplies force local conservation. This out of North Carolina. Shell is canceling drilling in the Arctic because of U.S. government pressure. That's just some of the reports that we have here. And meanwhile, Texas agency is being blocked by the federal government from allowing the firing up of that big new power plant they built in Corpus Christi. And the backstory on this from 6 years ago, raw story, Associated Press and PrisonPlanet.com, group. Internal memos show oil companies limited refineries to drive up prices. Documents from 1995 and March of 1996 show the ongoing meetings with the big five oil companies discussing the fact that there is a glut of oil. We're awash in oil worldwide, and that they had to buy up smaller companies and lobby for federal regulations to shut down their competition to create an artificial bottleneck. So important articles that are also linked in Watson's new article, Obama blocking of new power plants triggers national blackout. We also have our other report dealing with it, The Myth of Peak Oil by Paul Joseph Watson and Alex Jones, October 12th, 2005. Continuing with these reports, EPA to take over Texas air permitting for major refineries and power plants. Blackouts anger Dallas hospitals. Again, Obama issues global warming rules in January, gives General Electric an exemption this month from the rules. Obama EPA blocks South Dakota coal power plant. Here's another one. Georgia judge blocks coal plant on global warming grounds. Here's another one. Governor Sebelius bans new coal plants in Kansas. On and on and on. I could just go on literally for hours with the hundreds of plants government has come in and bought up and shut down, like the old Holly Street plant that could power much of Austin, shut down now for many years. Just not allowed to have it. Not allowed to have a city-owned utility. Not allowed to have it. As soon as you shut that down, the private interest-owned power plants, the insiders, their profits go up. You want to know, Austin, why in the last year your electricity bill has roughly doubled? Carbon taxes. Nothing to do with carbon. They just slap it on you. This is squeezing and squeezing and squeezing with insider deals. So the more plants Obama can stop from being built, the more plants he can have shut down, the more plants he can put taxes on and restrict their output, the more money the insiders will make because it will create artificial scarcity. All right, let's go to your phone calls. Then I'm going to get into internet censorship, really going into overdrive. UK seeks global accord on cyber behavior. See, with tyranny, you don't just get the grabbing of private property and the jacking up of essential services and the looting of pension funds and more and more taxes going up and the money being paid to offshore banks that the money's not even owed to because they've tied the government to fraudulent derivatives. No, you also get restrictions on the right to self-defense and private property. The toll-free number to join us on air is 800-259-9231. But I will just say this one more time. This fraud is so out in the open, so preposterous, that the government is giving insiders waivers from getting health care for unfair trade advantage and discrimination. That the unelected bureaucrats at the EPA are shutting down power plants that aren't insiders. All of this is illegal and criminal, and there needs to be congressional and state investigations, and they're actually starting, by the way, on the health care, on the waivers, on the power plants. It's on. It's on. We've got the moral high ground. We've got the facts. The only way they're going to succeed and win is if we sit on our big hind ends. And you may not think calling into talk radio on some other show and talking about these issues will help. Or you may not think the Drudge Report linking to our story is going to help. Or you may not think the Attorney General of Texas suing over the attempt for the feds to shut down our power plants is going to help. It is helping. We're winning a lot of fights. The globalists just become even more criminal and implement all this outside of law. So we keep fighting. Victory goes to who wants it the most. Simply looking at the information and researching leads to victory because then you're informed. Resistance is victory. Janice in Texas, you're on the air worldwide.
Hello, Alex. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good. Well, this all doesn't surprise me. I've been meaning to call in about this it's been going on for about a year. It's been in the back of my mind, but I thought I'd call about it today. I've noticed that there have been a rash of coal mine explosions, and it seemed very suspect to me. And there was one explosion in West Virginia, and it was about, I guess, maybe about a year ago. And Jay Rockefeller was actually in front of the mine in his day clothes, saying how concerned he was about the miners and how this was all wrong. And if the law allowed this, then he was just going to have to change the law. And on that same story, it was during the first cycle of news before they get the official story, CNN interviewed one of the miners' wives, and she said that her husband, who went to that mine, who actually got killed in that explosion, had written letters to all their daughters, like these farewell letters, like do good in school and, whatever.
Well, that's because West Virginian coal miners have the most dangerous job per capita in the United States, except for deep-sea industrial divers. They actually have the most dangerous, but after that, it is the coal miners. But deep-sea divers are paid, $150,000 a year on average, and the coal miners are making maybe $50,000. They certainly deserve more. But Janice, do you have anything else to add? Because I have something to add to it after you're done.
Well, just after that, Alex, I just noticed, there was the Chile explosion. I think there were a couple there, then China. I mean, there's just been one after the other, and it seemed to be happening on the clock monthly, and they were all blaming methane gas, like they couldn't go in to search for the miners because of the methane. That's really all I have. It just seemed really weird to me.
No, listen, I appreciate your call. It's just like you might get more crazy weather one year than you get another year. A lot of this is just random. Some days there's more murders in a city than others. Some days, there's more car accidents. But deep coal mines are one of the most dangerous jobs out there. I already said that. Everybody knows that. But the federal government has blocked one of the biggest deposits in the world of clean-burning coal in Utah that is close to the surface in the lignite family. And they blocked it in most other states. Texas, it gets blocked in most places. There's enough lignite in Texas, conservatively, to run the United States for more than 100 years. They talk about it being more than 1,000 years, what's in the entire country just that's been discovered. I mean, there's lignite just all over the place. We've got a family farm and ranch that they discovered lignite on, but they've never gone in or come in and leased it and done it. But the issue here is lignite is taken out with big trucks. It's near the surface, and there's almost no danger in lignite mining. I mean, it is just big bulldozers, big giant bulldozers. If you haven't ever driven by one of these mines, it's unbelievable. I mean, you could park in some of these bulldozers. I saw in a newspaper article, I think 6 school buses just in the back of the bulldozer. They got these giant scoops just dumping the black coal into the back of them. And so you've got these globalists, though, that own coal mines in Brazil and coal mines in China and coal mines in Eastern Europe, and where they don't have any environmental standards, so they want to shut down the mines here and then make you get it from overseas. I mean, Bill Clinton got caught doing this in 1996. What is it, 1 million acres or more of clean-burning coal. Companies wanted to go in and extract it. After they're done, they come in and plant grasslands and trees. It's beautiful. A lot of times humans make things even look better after they've done it. I've seen out in East Texas and South Texas where lignite mines were, and it looks like a 5,000-acre park or something now that's private property. You drive by and it's just like rolling green, perfect hills and beautiful trees planted everywhere, and the animals just love it. But that's because forests go through cycles, and generally when a forest is new, it's a lot healthier, but that's a side issue. That's why natural burning from lightning and things is so healthy, to change the overall ecology and to put more nutrients into the soil but from the fire. But I digress. It is suspicious, but what's certainly suspicious is the way they seize on it to demonize coal. And regardless of what you think of coal, regardless of what you think about it, it's what's powering 51% of this country, and our civilization couldn't stand without it. And there's insider deals to shut off private enterprise in this country that would make it inexpensive through free market and make it very expensive through inside deals. And that's basically, all I can say about that issue. But I don't want to destroy the West Virginians' way of life. But West Virginians, you're welcome down here in Texas. You ought to just, at least come down here part of the year and work in the lignite mines, because you're not going to get hurt doing that. Going deep down into mines is super dangerous in deep coal mining, and it's quite frankly pointless. I mean, I think that they should be allowed to do it if they want, but it's government restrictions on lignite mining that's stopping it economically from being feasible to stop the deep mining. Woody in Seattle. Woody, you're on the air.
Hey, thanks, Alex. How you doing today?
Doing all right, sir. Welcome.
I was listening to you the other day, and you were talking about three-dimensional chess. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the Middle East. We're seeing chess pieces that were put into place 30 years ago under the Carter administration coming into their now glory. And they're setting up this clash of civilizations so they can blame it on religion, and then they can fit it into their New World Order philosophy of all religion is bad except for the religion of worshiping the earth. And by the way, people are bad for the earth.
And by the way, the UN officially says in their 1996 Biological Diversity Assessment, but in literally hundreds of other documents I've read, I'm sure there's thousands, but I've only read hundreds, that man needs a religion. We're going to replace it with a fascistic Gaia religion with a militarized priest class of climate cops that enforce it. That's what university heads are saying every week in the news. So it's not your opinion. That is their stated goal.
Well, it's becoming obvious, I think, to anybody that's enlightened that we're being steered towards this clash of civilizations between the Islamic world and the Judeo-Christian world. And it's not that the people who believe in these religions, who have these faiths, are doing it. It's that the globalists, with all their intelligence networks and all of their military and political power, are steering us down this path.
Well, I agree with you. And if Israel is being menaced on all sides, they're going to get even more U.S. funding. And they're going to be able to crack down on their press and their population even more. Just like our criminal government, by staging terror attacks and funding terrorists and allowing terrorists to attack us, then uses that as a pretext to take our liberty. And once you understand the modus operandi, once you understand the system that they're using and what their methodology is, it's all crystal clear. I mean, I began to understand this methodology really about 15 years ago when I hadn't even read all these documents. And now I'll read declassified globalist documents, and it's as if I'd already read them word for word because I can see them. You know, once you see their system and see their propaganda, you can extrapolate it out, but then there's the verification by actually having the documents.
And if you go back further into history, you just look at World War II, what Hitler did in the Middle East, you know, going into Jerusalem and getting the Mufti behind him to, you know, do his work.
And he just picked up the network the British had set up to the Muslim Brotherhood, and then after he fell, the British just picked it back up again. I appreciate your call. Great points. Yeah, they're destabilizing the Middle East, order out of chaos, as Henry Kissinger said earlier this week. That this is only the first scene and the first act of a play. And Brzezinski's written 2 books bragging about how this would happen. He wrote one of them in '97 predicting it all, and now he's on TV bragging. They love to brag how they've engineered this whole thing. Look, they know when they have thousands of predator bombing attacks in Pakistan and Afghanistan every month, targeting weddings. You know, well, if we kill one bad guy and kill 250 innocents, men, women, and children, that's okay. Well, now you've created 250 people whose wives and kids and husbands got killed, and they're tribal folks over there, just like Americans once were, an eye for an eye, and they're like, okay, I'm going to kill American troops now is what they say, because it's their blood honor. I mean, and now they've created, quote, terrorist, people that are going to fight back, and they know exactly what they're doing. They're stirring up the beehive to then offer the solution of World War III and domestic police state to counter it. John in Ohio, you're on the air.
Yes, Alex, I think you got it backwards on the Camp David, falsely named in the propaganda media, the peace treaty. I think everything that Israel has been able to do so far as invading Lebanon for 12 years, the massacres of Sabra and Shatila, the genocide and persecution of the Palestinians has been based on this misnamed peace treaty. It was really an alliance between this brutal U.S. puppet dictator and Israel to guarantee them that they would not only stand aside but help Israel.
Well, sure. I don't think that agreement is fair, and I tend to agree with you. But I mean, let me just say this. Are you disagreeing that El-Baradi and the Muslim Brotherhood and these groups are being funded by the West? I mean, the West admits, and they're telling Mubarak to step down, and you're saying there's nothing to the strategy of tension, and you think this is great what's happening.
No, what I'm saying is that obviously the U.S. military-industrial complex, Israel, Mossad, and the CIA, and the IMF. I'd like to answer that after the break here.
Okay, John. Come back and have you get into that. John hadn't called in a while. He normally does about a half dozen plugs. You can talk about the issues on my show, but you're not going to plug other people's radio shows and things on my show, John. You can go spew your disinformation venom on those programs. But I'll be happy to hear from you on the other side with your view on the Middle East, okay? But I'm going to hang up on you if you open your mouth plugging people. I think John off and on has been calling the show for about 8 years or so. And I, again, don't screen phone calls, let folks talk about whatever they want. But I was sent a clip a few months ago of John on another radio show saying that Alex Jones says if you're a critic of Israel, you're mentally ill. And then I've seen the clip. That's not what I said. I said that I am critical of what Israel does, but people that say that I work for Israel, that they are mentally ill. And that shows the mental illness right there, that someone can say something in clear, understandable English, and people build straw men about who I am and what I stand for. John went on to say that I was for the flotilla attack when I was critical of that attack and said that I thought it was wrong and that the people of Gaza deserve aid. It is a fraud. So I don't even know why you call here, John, to talk about real issues when you are intellectually dishonest on this broadcast and on other broadcasts. Period. This is not the show for you. You're an admitted communist. You support communism. You don't like me because I'm not a communist. Okay? Period. And you communists have to lie to get your points across, and I find it despicable. Now, I'll give you 1 minute to talk about what you really think's happening in the Middle East. And if you don't like it, fine. Just hang up and don't ever call here again.
Well, you've just done to me what you've accused me of doing.
Hang up on him. I'm done with you. Okay? I'm done with you. Okay? You did exactly what I said, and you and everybody else are intellectual liars who can't face up to what I cover here on this show. You make me want to throw up, okay? Don't call my show anymore. Let's go ahead and talk to Dorothy in Michigan. Dorothy, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hi, Alex. I get a little tongue-tied. I'm not a good public speaker, but I wanted to let you know I called C-SPAN to talk to the energy senator from New Mexico, and I brought up the fact to him today about the rolling blackouts and how they're keeping the energy plants going for the for the Super Bowl, but yet there's people in hospitals that don't have the energy. And also that I had read or heard lately, I won't mention names, about how they're shutting down like Corpus Christi power plants or whatever, while China's being able to come in there and set up their own. And I said they don't have to pass cap and trade no more because the EPA is doing it by stealth.
By the way, China is now mining coal in Texas, taking it to Mexico for power plants they own. See how the scam works? We can't have them, and then China and GE build them right on the border, and we got to buy it from them, and they can hold us hostage. This is economic warfare. What did he say when you brought up those key points?
He looked kind of dumbfounded, like he said that, well, the EPA is going to gradually, over years, get rid of the dirty ones.
Bull.
He said
there are no dirty ones compared to other countries. All that's coming out is water vapor and carbon dioxide. And they point news cameras at it and say, look at the smoke in cold weather. It's like when you breathe in cold weather. They know full well what they're doing. And they love to play dumb. This is our energy being cut off. And I'm glad that the buzz on this story has gone huge thanks to people like you calling into these shows. Dorothy, what else do you want to talk about?
Well, I just wanted to say that, like the last caller, John, like you said, people lie. And everything you hear nowadays, if you don't check it out for yourself or look into it a little bit more, then you realize everything you're being told is a big fat lie, and it just gets under my skin. And I'm glad for people like you and others who just help for people like me who used to be in the dark are now awakened, and I thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Dorothy. I appreciate that call. Let's jam in one more. Matt in Minnesota, you're on the air, Matt.
Hey, Alex. Last week you guys released a video. It was from the Journal of 9/11 Studies, the more stuff that NIST was hiding, with the witness talking about seeing and hearing explosions. I was wondering if you guys had any information on anybody trying to access those videos in and around the Pentagon that the Department of Justice admits exist, that other people are...
Well, they're blocking the release of 87 videos of the Pentagon attack, and why would they not release those videos? They've released a parking lot camera that takes a few shots whenever your car goes through, so they're blocking it. What are they hiding? Just like Oklahoma City with the videos. We're going to continue with your phone calls through this Open Line Friday. I also want to talk to a talk show host, well-known nutritionist type individual who's a former mainline pharmacist who I really respect and had a chance to meet when I was out in Santa Cruz. He traveled there. He's not from California when I gave a speech. He's a Genesis talk show host. So we got pharmacist Ben Fuchs joining us for about 45 minutes into this hour. We'll continue with open phones. I want to get into moves to restrict internet speech now being pushed in the U.S., UK, the internet kill switch, how it's becoming a big news issue that the shutdown and the government blocking new power plants being built in the U.S. as part of carbon taxes and the Kyoto Protocol is causing these rolling blackouts. Republicans are driving the move to make the Patriot Act permanent. We need to discuss that. National debt jumped another $105.8 billion in January alone. That's Obama supposedly cutting spending. But right now, I want to continue with your great phone calls. Let's talk to Roy in Texas. Roy, thanks for holding.
Yes, sir.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, I just wanted to say, something real short. Night after night, I've been watching MSNBC, on both MSNBC, Fox, Richard Maddow's show, Lawrence O'Donnell, what's the guy, Shepard Smith. They're all reporting, and not just reporting and actually admitting, but condemning the provocateur false flag tactics against the protesters in Egypt. But when it comes to any type of provocateur activities by police, the Black Bloc, WTO protest over here, there's nothing to be said about it.
No. In fact, going back early last week, it was in the major Egyptian papers, it was in the Middle Eastern papers, that it was confirmed that Hosni Mubarak, at least on the surface, it may have been a reverse false flag where other globalist-controlled groups within his government were doing it, but it looks like it's Mubarak. Police were dressing up, military dressing up like protesters, attacking shops, attacking homes to make the demonstrators look bad. And now Richard Maddow on MSNBC, Mr. Maddow and Slimeball and others, I've seen those clips, are admitting false flag. But in Denver in 2008, the Denver Post admitted police dressed up like anarchists and attacked crowds and police as a pretext to demonize the demonstrations. They were caught a few years ago in Ottawa during a SPP meeting doing it. In Greece, the government was caught doing it. The point is, governments do this, but when we talk about it, we're kooks when our own government's doing it. But, other governments, they do it, and they admit that's happening. I mean, what do you think Mr. Maddow's getting at here?
I don't know. It's just it's unbelievable. And her in particular, on her show, has, night after night been reporting and condemning this. And but you'll never hear any mention of it on her show or Matthews of anything like that over here. And when we do, you're right, we're labeled kooks or conspiracy theorists.
Well, I don't know what to say about it. It's the globalists admit they're orchestrating this. It doesn't mean that the powder keg wasn't there and the people don't deserve liberty and that I hate Mubarak. Sure, but what are they replacing it with? Well, they want strategy and tension. Great points, Roy. Thank you. Darren, excuse me. Darren in New York, you're on the air.
Yes.
Yes.
Yo, Alex, how you doing, pal? Darren from New York, Long Island, the suburbs of New York. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. You know what, Alex? The reason why I'm calling, I just started listening to your show. I feel like, in a short thing, it's, I feel like that, Keanu Reeves, Neo in The Matrix just had my eyes open, man. And I'm going to tell you, I'm freaked, man. I've been listening to you. My friend told me to go to it online. Now your eyes are open. Go check out the information. I opened up the wormhole, the rabbit hole. Now you got to go dig in and start, looking up the information. And I'm telling you, piece after piece, I'm freaked out. I'm saying, we know our government's BS. There's all this time that's been giving us a lot.
I'll tell you what, Darren, I got a guest coming up, and I'm going to finish up with Darren, Sean, and Chris before we go to our guests who we're getting online right now, pharmacist Ben Fuchs. Stay there, because I want to talk about this awakening. The Matrix is all around us. We go to work, and we pay our taxes. We've been covering the massive power outages from coast to coast, people going without electricity, natural gas, because through the Kyoto Protocol being implemented in the last 5 years by fiat, by the executive branch under Bush and now accelerated under Obama, our energy infrastructure has been debilitated by design, and only insiders like General Electric are allowed to build new plants. They're also building a bunch of plants along the Texas-Mexico border because Texas can't build new plants. We've got to get our power from Mexico, and now Mexico yesterday cut off our power, saying they need it. Source on that, Fox News and Associated Press. Also, obviously, we're covering what's happening in Egypt and the destabilization campaign there. Coming up, UK seeks global accord on cyber behavior. That means cyber laws on what you can and can't do online, unifying this control grid, all part of the internet kill switch that we've all seen in action in Egypt under the dictator Hosni Mubarak. With new dictators on the way, Mr. El-Baradi and others run by the West, just like Mubarak has been run by the West. But for the rest of the hour, after I take a few more calls, we're going to talk to pharmacist Ben Fuchs and just some amazing research and information he's put together. He's a Sunday afternoon Genesis broadcaster, and I'm really impressed. Had a chance to meet him when I was out in California when he traveled to hear me speak there. So I look forward to having him on with us today, talking about bad drug interactions, what he witnessed as a pharmacist and the research he's done. He's also the co-host of Dead Doctors Don't Lie with Dr. Joel Wallach. So very, very informative. But I wanted to finish up with a few callers before we go to him. Darren, if you just tuned in, was saying, I just woke up a few months ago. I feel like I've fallen down the rabbit hole into the matrix. It's freaking me out. What was the other point you wanted to make or your question, Darren?
Well, it's just like, what do we do to protect ourselves at this point? I mean, the recent, like I said, I've been training, working out with my friend. He's been giving me all this information. He says, look it up. I looked at the Denver airport, listened to, the old governor, Jesse Ventura, whatever that's all about. But, it just started. So I'm concerned. It's going, how do we stand up? How do we arise? How do we prevail? How do us as people say, what, this stuff is coming? The Bible and all these people with religion, whatever. It's going, well,
Darren, let me answer you off air because it's a really important question. Awakening is a process. First, you've got to get informed about basic history, our Bill of Rights, our Constitution, and then get informed about how tyranny and corruption operates. It always behaves the same. We're just living in a different time. And then you realize that simply by saying no to tyranny, by speaking out, by not just watching television and obsessing on things like the Super Bowl that at the end of the day don't matter, by valuing liberty and getting others to value liberty, it's a process to turn the tide, and that's beginning to happen. And it's happening right now by you tuning in and trying to discover more. But we are waking up. We are resisting. We are saying no. And it's little steps every day that are going to turn the tide, and we are beginning, as I said, to turn the tide. Good question there, Darren. Let's talk to Sean in Canada. Sean, you're on the air.
Hello, Alex.
Hey.
Hey, how are you? It's great to talk to you. I just wanted a couple of seconds of your time here. Appreciate it. I'm one of your many Canadian listeners through the Internet. I log in through my iTunes there and have a listen almost daily. I'd like to thank you all for your hard work. I just want to touch on a couple things. I've been listening all week. You've had a great week with a lot of different subjects. First of all, you had Kurt Haskell on the show.
Yes.
Yeah, and what a great guy. I wish him all the best. His story is really important.
For those that don't know, for those who just tuned in, why don't you just briefly recap what the lawyer, the survivor of the Christmas Day bombing attack on the airplane, discovered?
Well, without going into too much, they can look it up themselves, of course. But he's basically being misrepresented. His story is being laughed at in many ways, and I don't really I can't believe it personally. I think. Well,
I don't know who's laughing at it. I mean, I don't know who's laughing at it, Sean. He and his wife saw them help the government help get the underwear bomber Muttalib on the plane, and then it came out 2 months later. The State Department admitted the U.S. government helped him get on the plane, and he's been completely vindicated. And I, quite frankly, haven't seen the people that, quote, make fun of him. But I mean, there it is right there.
Making money on his blog and stuff is a bit ridiculous. He's trying to tell his story as truthfully as possible, and I think more people need to listen to him. That's really my point. Another issue that I had to bring up here is you get a lot of callers concerning chemtrails, which is a big issue here in Canada, especially near our borders here. The states concerning Washington, Montana, North Dakota, of course.
Yeah, weather modification.
Yeah, we get a lot of blowover from factories there, and also the chemtrail issue. It's a big issue up here in Canada, and I'd like to hear more about that. I do have a small favor to ask from you. If you would do me a favor and just maybe have a show or a piece of a show that's concerning Canada and America's relations. I know that President Obama was up here today, I believe, talking with Prime Minister Harper concerning border security, talking more about tightening up on terrorists and things
that's
like this,
that's the SPP, North American Union Agreement. I appreciate your call. Great points. Sean, my seminal film, 2.5 hours long, Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement, deals with the North American Union, the SPP, how Canada, Mexico, and the U.S. in a secret agreement signed in 2005 have already been merged. In 2007, they began merging the North American Union with the EU. This film is so important. Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement. And it's available on DVD at Infowars.com, the online video bookstore shopping cart. You can watch it in the highest quality at prisonplanet.tv, or just Google Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement, or just Endgame. It's the top link. It's free, millions and millions of views online. And and it's got an online bibliography, like a book. You go to whatistheendgame.com. But if I was you, I'd organize viewings of this film. I mean, this gives you the full spectrum breakdown. But there's a continuity of agenda. Everything being done in your country is being set up here under just almost the same names, sometimes the exact same names. And so it's this global, I mean, what did your leader, Harper, just call for 2 months ago? He said Canada's got to give up its sovereignty to a world government to compete. They get us into globalism. It's destroyed our sovereignty. It's hurt our economy. And their answer is more of the same poison. So there you have it. In fact, I said I'd play this earlier, and I'm going to play it again. Do we have the clip of Obama saying that he wants to bankrupt coal plants? Let's play that clip right now. I mean, they want to destroy their competition. They don't want to destroy all the coal plants, not General Electric, not the Chinese-owned plants in the U.S., only companies that aren't part of the inner circle. If this is an economic warfare, what is? What is the North American Union? It's taking over our roads, our highways, putting international taxes on them, letting foreign corporations come in and take over our roads. This is what's happened in the third world. It's happening here. And here's Obama engaged in treason, promising to bankrupt coal plants. He's done it. He's blocked them from being built. He's shut down existing ones. And we're having blackouts all over the country. And China's building 3 to 5 new plants a week. We don't get 3 new ones a year. It's real simple. It's economic warfare. Here it is.
So if somebody wants to build a coal-powered plant, they can. It's just that it will bankrupt them because they're going to be charged a huge sum for all that greenhouse gas that's being emitted.
Boom! 3 was the charm. Ha ha! Absolutely amazing. Okay, we're going to get back to Chris, Jason, Tim. We'll have open phones throughout the next hour. If you want to hold, you can. If not, you can call back later. We'll have open phones when Bob Chapman joins us and continue to look at the deteriorating dollar and the economy and the attacks on free speech. But for the rest of the hour, I've heard this guy's show on Genesis Sundays. And I'm impressed with it. I heard it one day when I wasn't even doing my own broadcast. Sometimes I take off on Sundays. And he's pharmacist Ben Fuchs, a nutritional pharmacist from Boulder, Colorado, specializes in using nutritional supplements where other healthcare practitioners use toxic pharmacological drugs. He hosts The Bright Side on Genesis Sundays. And also he co-hosts Dead Doctors Don't Lie. And from my research, and by the way, I've just started taken some of the stuff that's recommended by pharmacist Ben Fuchs and by Dr. Joel Wallach. My wife, though, is big into exercise. I mean, she exercises super hard. She's in great shape. And she loves the pollen burst. She loves the Beyond Tangy Tangerine. And because they have minerals in them, and they have B vitamins and other key things. But the issue is our food, because of the soils in this country and the toxic fertilizers, has been basically adulterated with chemicals and additives, but also doesn't have the minerals in it. And so many of the problems are caused by mineral deficiencies. But that's only one level of this. But I want to talk to pharmacist Ben Fuchs specifically about, formerly being a mainline pharmacist, what he saw with bad drug interactions and these toxic drugs. I mean, you see the ads for big pharma mainline drugs. It's like, got restless legs? Well, take this. You know, it may cause you to do all these horrible things or all these health problems, but still it's greater. Having trouble needing to go to the bathroom too much? Here, take this. You know, but it may make you die. Or here, you know, 3,000 people die a year of the papilloma virus. But here, take this vaccine that doesn't even protect you from it, and then it ends up killing you. The Gardasil. What the statin drugs are doing. This is a pharmacist that saw this for himself. So we're going to talk about drug interactions, bad drug interactions, one of the biggest killers in this country. On the other side with pharmacist Ben Fuchs for the rest of the hour. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We've got some new developments on the blackout situation due to deindustrialization up at prisonplanet.com. We'll be covering before the hour ends. But joining us for his maiden visit here on the transmission is pharmacist Ben Fuchs, again, who hosts his own show here Sundays on the GCN Radio Network, the home of the Alex Jones Show. And you go through the statistics. We've got $2 trillion a year being spent on health care in the U.S., $8,000 for every man, woman, and child. But we have some of the worst health in the world. And a lot of it's caused by the drugs Big Pharma is pushing. And pharmacist Ben Fuchs is obviously perfectly suited to be able to talk about this as somebody who was a long-time mainline pharmacist. Ben, great to have you on with us.
Greetings, Alex. Thank you so much, and thank you for all your wonderful work. I've been following your stuff for almost a decade now, and it's just a tremendous, tremendous asset to have you on our side.
Well, it's awesome having you here with us. This is a short segment, long one coming up. But, I mean, bottom line, how did you awaken? What's going on in this country? Because we're told give up all of our rights because terrorists might kill us, but we got a better chance of being struck by lightning or, drowned. Or
prescription drugs.
Yeah.
Or killed by prescription drugs, yes. Well, in pharmacy school, one of the main things we study in pharmacy school, believe it or not, is side effects. I remember watching a movie, and I graduated from pharmacy school back in 1986, and I remember watching a movie that was put out by a drug company, a promotional movie for a new drug that was going to revolutionize the hypertensive business, the antihypertensive business. It was a drug called Inderal, or now known as propranolol. It was a beta blocker drug. It was a new class of drugs, and this was an hour-long movie that was done to promote this drug. In the first 15 minutes, they talked about how revolutionary this drug was going to be. The last 45 minutes was some lady reading the side effects of this drug, and she was reading them very fast, and she could barely get them through in 45 minutes. And right then and there, I knew we had a problem. And then when I graduated pharmacy school and started to work in the drug business, I started to see what I was actually doing as a perpetrator, as a pushing these medicines on children and on the elderly, because that's who takes most of our medicine, is children and the elderly. And I just couldn't live with myself. And the more and more I did research, the more I found out that we are not sick in this country. We're starving. We're missing basic raw materials. You see, Alex, the human body is a healing and regenerating system. It's designed on a divine basis to heal and renew itself on a moment-to-moment basis, and you need look no further than the last time you cut your finger to observe this healing process in place. And that same healing process that kicks in when you get a little paper cut, where little fibers wind their way to the area and collagen comes through and white blood cells clear it out, and all of a sudden 2 days later you don't even know you have a cut. That same process happens inside the body. It happens on a regular basis. It's divinely mandated, but it needs raw materials to do its work. And those raw materials are what we call nutrition and nutritional supplementation, and those are the raw materials that we're missing. We're missing them, as you said, the last hour, from the ground up. We're missing them from the soils. We're missing them from the plants. We're missing them from food processing. And the net effect is degenerative diseases are increasing at an epidemic rate, and it is a tragic, tragic state of affairs.
And this is known by science. This is known in all their big internal studies. This is known by doctors and veterinarians. One of the biggest issues that people that own livestock deal with is mineral deficiencies that cause all sorts of health problems, that then hurt the overall output of the farm or ranch. This is not a secret to those that do the research. But, I mean, here's just a historical example. Why are British called limeys? Germans get called krauts because they like to eat sauerkraut. Why are British called limeys? Well, going back over 300 years, internal British naval reports, their scientists found that for whatever reason, people that didn't eat fresh fruits had their skin degenerate, their teeth fall out, old wounds would open back up, and they knew that if they simply ate fruits, that for some reason they then wouldn't die when they went on long voyages. And so the British Empire spread for many reasons, but one of the biggest was their sailors 5,000 miles from home engaging a Spanish ship 5,000 miles from home, or a French ship. And the French and Spanish, by the way, made jokes for hundreds of years about the British, how they carried limes with them everywhere, calling them limeys. And to make sure that the people on the ship would drink it, they would squeeze the lime into the rum, into the grog, part water, part rum, that they gave the sailors because they knew they'd drink the liquor. And so they would mix that lime in, and so the British would be all healthy and ready to kill some people when their ship came up alongside to board, and the Spanish or the French would all be laying out on the deck with their teeth falling out, the #1 cause of death for sailors, obviously being scurvy. And that's an example right there of just vitamin C needed in collagen.
That's exactly right. And just a tiny little bit of vitamin C. And if you don't have that tiny little bit of vitamin C, as you said, you get scurvy, which is one of the most hideous diseases known to man. But you know what, Alex? You need more than that tiny little bit of vitamin C for optimum health. And that's one of the biggest scams going in the world of
health. And that's what Nobel Prize winner, two-time Nobel Prize winner Linus Pauling found, but they don't want and now the UN's moving to block taking megadoses of vitamin C. Let's talk about that and a lot more with pharmacist Ben Fuchs straight ahead. There is no doubt that the medical system, not the average doctor, they're compartmentalized, not the average pharmacist or nurse, but the medical system itself wants to treat the disease, not give you preventative measures. And we're talking about this with insider, formerly a mainline pharmacist, talk show host Ben Fuchs. Ben, continuing, I just used the example of scurvy. Let's continue with scurvy and then look at what other mineral or vitamin deficiencies do, and how when people go into the hospital or the doctor now, they don't even look at that. They don't even look at deficiencies. They don't test the blood. They just give you some toxic pharmacological garbage.
Worse than that, Alex, they take you off your supplements if you're on supplements because they don't want the supplements to interfere with the toxins.
Oh, yeah, I hear Dr. Dean Adele every week when I tune in. He's on a local station before I go on Sundays, and I've had Dr. Dean on before. I hear him say vitamins are bad for you. He'll bring out these government studies. He'll say that you don't need them. I mean, it's crazy.
Alex, you ever hear the term useful idiot?
Yes.
Well, let me tell you something. With all due respect to the good doctor, that term is very appropriate. I don't know what his intentions are. Maybe I'm sure he's a nice guy, but to go out and to tell people that they need to go off of their vitamins, that vitamins cause problems, is absolutely at best irresponsible, and at worst it's insidious and evil. The fact of the matter is vitamins have zero side effects. Vitamins have, and by the way, I don't mean just vitamins. Vitamins and minerals and what we call nutritional compounds have zero side effects, zero toxicities, zero adverse effects. The worst thing that can happen is you can take a 500 vitamin A pills and go into something called hypervitaminosis, which immediately reverses as soon as you stop taking the vitamins, unlike prescription drugs, which are a leading cause of death, which are a leading cause of hospitalizations, fifth leading cause of death, according to the Journal of the American Medical Association.
And by the way, you're a pharmacist, and my dad's a dentist, and I've seen him call a pharmacist friend of his to ask if a drug interacts. My dad's really smart, but he'll tell you a pharmacist knows more than he does because you deal with this every day. And I know medical doctors will call and check with pharmacists about interactions because you guys are the experts.
With all due respect to doctors, they are trained in hiding symptoms and masking symptoms. And I should clarify that there's two types of medicine. There is what we call heroic medicine, where, by the way, American medicine excels.
A gunshot wound, a compound fracture.
Heart attacks, stitching you up, get hit by a car or bus. That's called heroic medicine, and nobody ever gives short shrift to surgeons or people who practice heroic medicine. Where medicine is an abject failure. An abject failure
is pharmakia.
ambulatory medicine, where people are being treated for their symptoms. Well, Alex, your symptoms are your friends. Your diabetes is your friend. Your psoriasis, your arthritis is your friend, because it's telling you there is something underneath in the biochemistry of your body that needs to be corrected, or your demise is imminent. The idea is not to hide the symptom. The idea is not to mask the symptom. The idea is not to shut the body down. The idea is to figure out what is wrong, what is the body trying to tell you, and to correct that problem. And more often than not, it is based in the nutritional system. And that's why nutritional supplementation is an absolute must. It is not an option, especially in this day and age of health insurance, where everybody's screaming and up in arms about buying health insurance, being forced to buy in health insurance, the costs of health insurance. My friends, there is no better health insurance, and there is no less expensive health insurance than $3 a day on a nutritional supplementation program.
Well, why? If you see the statistics from Australia to the United States, it's the same, because our industrial growth was almost identical, but it's the same thing in Western Europe. Up until about 1935 or so, suddenly people started living longer. Suddenly people started having less diseases. They were drinking better water. They were getting more nutrients. They were getting better heroic medicine. We had better sewage systems. People knew to wash their hands. Then vaccines and drugs come in, and suddenly we see a lot of that life extension gain being reversed now across the board. Please continue.
Life expectancy just dropped. You know, average life expectancy in the United States just actually dropped the last year. Slight drop, but I predict it's going to be dropping even further, and it's the first time in decades that that's happened. Now, what occurred, Alex, is we really, up until about the middle of the 20th century, we really did use nutrition. Physicians really did practice nutritional medicine, and we understood the power of the diet. But right around the middle of the century, the pharmaceutical industry started to understand how the body could be manipulated, so that symptoms could be hid. And this really began with the advent of steroid medicine. Around the middle of the 20th century, rheumatoid arthritis was a real killer disease, and it's still a pretty horrible disease. We don't see folks with rheumatoid arthritis too bad anymore.
Yeah, it was the Germans that pioneered steroid medicine.
Well, what happened was, when steroid medicine came out, steroids shut down the immune system. Rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease where the immune system goes awry and starts to attack itself. Well, when steroids came out, we figured out how to shut down the immune system. Well, temporarily, if you shut down the immune system, you're not going to have rheumatoid arthritis. And that was
but then your body doesn't fight off the cancer.
Exactly. Do you think it's a good idea to ever shut down your immune system? Hello, doctors out there listening.
It's estimated, according to the federal government reports I've seen, that a 20-year-old gets cancer a couple times a year, that a 70-year-old is getting it almost every day, but the body is beating it. Right. And it's when your autoimmune system stops killing the cancer every day, it's over.
You never want to shut down your immune system. It is absolutely ridiculous to think that by shutting down the immune system you could improve health. But Alex, that's how medicine works. Medicine works by blocking things. Medicine works by suppressing things. Medicine works by shutting things down. That's why we have anti-inflammatories. That's why we have anti-hypertensives. That's why you have inhibitor drugs. You have a serotonin reuptake inhibitors. You don't want to shut the body down. The body is like your baby. And when you have some kind of symptom, your baby is crying. Now, if you take some duct tape and tape your baby's mouth, you're not going to hear your baby crying, and that's all great, but you're going to kill your baby. Well, the same thing happens when you take a drug to shut down a symptom, be that symptom inflammation that shows up as arthritis, or hypersecretion of cholesterol that shows up as cholesterol plaques. Whatever it is, if you're shutting down a system in the body so you mask the symptom, you are shortening your life, accelerating your demise. It is crazy, especially in light of the fact that almost all diseases, if you backtrack them far enough, you will find either a defect in nutrition or a defect in the absorption of nutrients from the GI system, from the digestive system. And this is the core of all health and wellness and the core of all disease, nutrition and the digestive system.
Well, I know mainline medical science for hundreds of years knew that vitamin C was literally integral to everything. And I, read stuff 80 years ago where dermatologists told women, if you want to have young skin, eat lots of things containing vitamin C. But now they don't tell women that. They tell them have surgery. Again, another example, just looking at minerals, vitamins, nutrients, because that's one of your big areas of research. that deal with the skin, the biggest organ in the body.
Right.
What are things that we know that supercharge the skin?
Well, I'll tell you, skincare is really my business. It's my passion and my love, and I lecture around the country specifically talking about skincare, and I've formulated many skincare products over the last 30 years. And let me tell you something. I don't like the question where people say, what's the one thing I could do for my skin? But I'll tell you, if I had to tell you one thing you could do for your skin, it's probably the single most critical nutritional deficiency that we have in this country, and that is around fats and essential fatty acids. Now, when you don't have fats in your body, your skin will show up as dry. And Alex, how many people do you know have dry skin?
Oh, I'm going to stop you right now. There are all these women in my neighborhood, 35, 40 years old, who are super skinny, who are into being, skinny, but they look like shriveled mummies. And I tell my wife, when she starts losing too much weight, I say, honey, I like a little plumpness. I mean, because she looks young and vibrant and voluptuous, but they've sold us that it's so beautiful to be this little wraith. But then I read about all these disorders with seizures and mainline science admitting, you need more of these certain types of fats for your brain, not just your skin.
Well, there's two specific kinds of fats that are technically referred to as essential fatty acids. And whenever you hear the term essential in nutrition, that refers to a substance that you cannot make, a substance that you have to get from your diet. And these two fatty acids are absolutely critical for the production of protein, number one, as anti-inflammatories, number two, for brain health, number three, for the production of something called master hormones, which we know as eicosanoids in the biochemical world. Without these essential fatty acids, none of those compounds can be produced, and the net effect is a degeneration of all your tissue, and one of the first tissues that degenerates in the body is the skin, because to the body, the skin is not important, or not as important as the heart or the lungs. So when you're nutritionally deficient, the first place the body will withdraw nutrients from is the skin. So the skin becomes a window to what's happening in the body instantly. So we can look, by looking at the skin and by reading the skin, by speaking the language of the skin, we don't have to do biopsies. We don't have to cut inside the body to be able to assess nutritional deficiencies. And one of the worst things, or one of the most common things that we see in the skin is dry skin. Well, let me tell you something, Alex. Human skin should never be dry. Human skin should never be dry. There are sponges inside your skin. We call them the natural moisture factor. There are molecular compounds that trap water. If you have dry skin, you have a biochemical deficiency that is shortening your life. It is not cosmetic and superficial to take care of your skin. To take care of your skin from a nutritional basis is to feed the inside of your body, because if you see something happening on your skin, rest assured it's happening on the inside of your body. We can use the skin as a barometer to what's happening inside the body on a nutritional basis, and that's how we want to treat skin issues. That's the number one thing I've learned from being a skincare professional, which I am, as well as being a pharmacist.
Again, you host a show Sundays, and I've done a lot of research because I'm trying to get into a real health kick, not just exercising, but under all the stress I deal with, trying to get the right minerals. In the last 3 weeks, I've been doing this with my wife, and she's a lot more into health than I am, and she just absolutely loves the products from Longevity, the Tangy Tangerine, Beyond Tangy Tangerine, but also the Pollen Burst. She's taking it all. That's her favorite before she works out, with all those minerals and vitamins and all of the trace elements that are in there. And one reason I've got you here today is because I've done a lot of research. When I promote a gold company, I do research. When I promote a storable foods company, I do research. It's what I buy from. It's what I believe in. And that's why we've set up the InfoWarsTeam.com, just InfoWarsTeam.com. And you're involved in it. Dr. Wallach is. And it's just like Costco, folks. It's $10 to sign up, and then you get big discounts, or you can just buy the stuff straight out. And then if you want to sign up others, but that's a small factor in all of it, to basically go out there and share this information with other people. But I've bought a bunch of it and have just been giving it to family, because I did a lot of research on wide spectrum, really high quality mixes where I'm told you absorb a lot more of it when it's not a pill, but it's in a mix, and that it comes from natural sources, not artificial or synthetic chemical sources. And knowing about Dr. Wallach now for 15 years and the work he does with all this, we have decided to really start promoting Longevity, and folks can go to InfoWarsTeam.com and again buy the products, or it's $10 to sign up. You can sign others up and sell the products to others. It's a great great system, and in this imploding economy, it's a great business for people as well. But so many great products. Some of the products you promote and have developed are also there at InfoWarsTeam.com. And if people will just try, these true wide-spectrum vitamins and minerals, it will have such a huge effect in their life. And I'm already seeing it myself. My wife is already seeing it. Tell us, dealing with minerals, how important they are. Because, the government says you need 44 minerals or so. But in the...
Nothing works without minerals. Nothing works without minerals. Minerals act like minerals do a lot of things, but one of the most important things they do is they act like little batteries. Minerals conduct energy. Alexander Volta, back in the late 18th century or late 18th century, came up with this idea where he noticed that minerals produce something called a voltage. They called it an electrical current, but they named it after Alexander Volta. Your body is an electrical system, and it conducts energy at different frequencies, and each one of these minerals acts as a frequency modulator. Remember back in the old days we used to have crystal radios, where you just turn the crystal and different frequencies would come in through the crystal radio? Well, the body is much the same way. So many people think of minerals as part of the structural component of the body, and indeed your body's skeletal system is composed of minerals, but really minerals function in a much more fundamental fashion, and that is in an electrochemical fashion. No vitamins work without minerals. Vitamins all have a little battery associated with them, and that battery can be considered a mineral. Now, minerals you can't just get minerals from eating rocks. Rocks are minerals, but you're not going to get any nutritional value out of rocks. But plants have evolved an ability to take those rocks from the earth and convert them into an electrically active, usable form. So the way you want to get your minerals is in plant form. Now, eating vegetables is a great way to get your minerals in an activated form. But millions of years ago, there were swamps all over this part of the country out west here, and as the swamps died, the organic material decayed, and what was left were these activated minerals, which have remained with us as mines. And by scooping out these minerals out of mines, you can actually put them in water, and because they're electrically active, they will suspend in the water. Minerals will, if they're not electrically active, will sink in water. They don't float or suspend, but when they're electrically active, they form something called a colloidal suspension. And a colloidal suspension of minerals is nothing more than minerals that are actually hanging in the water via electromagnetic interactions with the water. And when you drink those minerals, you get those electrically activated substances into your body and into your cells in an absorbable form.
So you're able to absorb it. What's
Yes.
your view? What's your view of colloidal silver? Because I know
Same idea. Silver, if you try to do just plain old silver, you would die because silver can't be handled by the body, but in the colloidal format, it becomes non-toxic. So it's the same idea. When minerals are suspended in a colloidal format, they become non-toxic and they become absorbable and usable by the body.
Now I heard that described by my dad when he went to UT and then Baylor, because he's like, I was saying, Dad, I bought this stuff at Whole Foods, this super, mineral bottle, and they told me at the place that it's the best at Whole Foods. And I said, but why does it say it has trace mercury and arsenic, but then mercury and arsenic's bad? And he said, well, I learned in school that it's a different variant of it, and you have to have tiny trace amounts of that stuff mixed with the other minerals to have it be able to be activated. That's different than pure mercury, injected into you past the blood-brain barrier, not going through the stomach. That's why the Japanese live longer statistically than anybody else. They have the highest, diet mercury of anybody. That's because it's a different type, because it's somehow, and again, I'm going off what scientists have said. I don't understand this myself, connected into the tuna fish flesh itself, so you pass it through you, and it only helps upload the other minerals and vitamins. But if it's another type, the type that they're injecting you, the thimerosal, it's completely different. Is that correct?
That completely different form. It's not like a mineral is a mineral is a mineral. There are many different forms of minerals. When minerals are suspended in a colloidal liquid, they become active and they become usable and they become non-toxic. This is the gift that plants have given us, is they've activated and they've detoxified these substances.
Incredible. Well, folks, we hope you check out the fine line of products, and also your purchase of them supports this broadcast, what we're doing. But I believe in these products. I've researched them. I've looked into them, a wide range of them, available on the longevity line at InfoWarsTeam.com. We'll continue when we come back. I want to keep you into the next segment with us. Then Bob Chapman's going to be joining us on the economy in Egypt. and a lot more with his Friday visit he does every Friday with us. But pharmacist Ben Fuchs is joining us. The system knows we have mineral and vitamin deficiencies. They know that we have trace element deficiencies, because from the research I've done, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's important to have those 90-plus minerals and then all the other vitamins for them all to work together, because if you don't have them, then the other vitamins and minerals are unable to be basically fully used by the body. And after you talk about that, I mean, give us your breakdown as a pharmacist, your take on the Beyond Tangy Tangerine that we've got at InfoWarsTeam.com. Because, again, I've scoured to find the best products that I believe in and have done the research on, but I want your view on it, on the pollen burst. Because my wife she doesn't have a placebo effect. I mean, she kind of looks down her nose at things until she really sees the effect, and she likes the pollen burst the best. But, I mean, break that down. Am I correct in describing how all these things work synergistically together?
Let me tell you a couple things. First of all, the cool thing about nutritional supplementation is the more deficient you are, the faster you notice results. Because the body is in a vacuum state and nature abhors a vacuum. So if you are deficient in any nutrients, as soon as you start a supplement program, you notice results right away. And by right away, I'm talking within hours you will notice results. And if you have a deficiency disease, if you have something like diabetes or hypertension and you start a nutritional program, your markers, your health markers will change so rapidly that you better tell your doctor, or you may run into a problem with your medications being too active. That's how fast you notice results. When the body's in deficiency state, it absorbs nutrients rapidly. So this stuff proves itself. It will prove itself to you within hours or within days. Now, as far as the synergistic nature of nutritional supplements, you're absolutely correct, Alex. No matter how good your baseball team is, if you don't have a third baseman, you're not going to win very many games. You can have all eight other positions filled with all-stars, but if you're missing one position, you're not going to win many games, and nutrients work the same way. Even though we like to break them down, and I'm guilty of this myself because of the fascinating nature of each one of these substances, you have to take a complete nutritional supplement program, not individual nutrients. And that's one of the reasons why I like the longevity products so well, is because they allow you to get on a program, and nothing exemplifies this synergy and the program nature of the supplements better than the Beyond Tangy Tangerine, because it has everything. And not only does it have everything, it has everything in a liquid format. It's actually a powder that you put in water, but then you drink it. And one of the first things we learn in pharmacy school is it's not the medicine that you take, it's how well you absorb it. And the fastest way to absorb a nutrient that's not intravenous or intramuscular is through a liquid solution that you drink.
Because with pills, no matter how good the pill is, you don't absorb a lot of it. But when it's liquid, you absorb almost all of it. I mean, that's just, bottom line, common sense.
Common sense, right. If you want to maximize your absorption of anything, you want to put it in a liquid format. The Beyond Tangy Tangerine, as well as a lot of the other products, by the way. And this is another one of the brilliant touches of Dr. Wallach, is he understood that it's the format of the supplement, and that's why you have liquid supplements.
Well, look, I'm a busy guy, and I was in great shape 10, 12 years ago, quit working out, got totally out of shape. I've lost 25 pounds the last year. Now I want to lose another 30 and really get in shape. And just doing my research for it, I was jogging, lifting. It's nutrition. Even though I don't eat a lot of junk food, I wasn't getting a lot of the things I needed, and I am feeling the difference. But it's common sense. If I can take one packet that tastes great, dump it in my purified water and drink it, that's something I can do, and that's something my children will do. But if I tried to take all of this as vitamins and minerals, it'd be a big pile of them every day. Folks, the website's InfoWarsTeam.com. If you got any questions, there's a phone number there on the site you can call and find out more. But I really do believe in this, and I hope you'll check it out and get involved with it today. InfoWarsTeam.com. There's a phone number on the site. We're going to come back and spend a few more minutes with pharmacist Ben Fuchs. Bob Chapman joining us in the next segment. We'll have open phones, get into the economy, the latest developments in Egypt. Bob Chapman's take on the power outages all over the U.S., admittedly caused by the federal government blocking the building of new power plants. But pharmacist Ben Fuchs joins us. I've heard his show, impressed with his research, had a chance to meet him when he flew out to hear me speak in Santa Cruz a few months ago. And that's why when I met him at the time, I wanted to get him on the show, because I'd done some research into his work. And I believe in promoting things that I think are good and that also support our broadcast and what we're doing, and that's what InfoWarsTeam.com is doing, and it's pretty much like Costco. You pay $10 if you want to get the discounts on the products, or you can just buy the products. And then once you sign up, you can also sign up others, as you sell it to your neighbors, friends, family, or do like I'm doing, just giving it to friends and family. But my children love the Beyond Tangy Tangerine. My wife's also taken the Pollen Burst. They got a lot of other great products that we're promoting at InfoWarsTeam.com. But in the 4 minutes we've got left, Ben, getting into just other confirmed examples of deficiencies that we know are causing major diseases for people out there listening that their doctor hasn't, told them. And hey, if they take the vitamins or minerals and it doesn't help them, I doubt that it wouldn't. They're out, nothing but having some vitamins in their body that certainly helped them at some level. Why not? Why aren't the medical profession, I've seen studies about how unhealthy hospital food is amongst some of the worst, in the world. Our body is made up of what we eat.
Let me tell you one of the most insidious nutritional deficiencies that we've got going, and that is the B vitamins in heart, as they regard heart disease. Simply 3 B vitamins can eliminate large numbers of heart problems, and Dr. Kilmer McCulley, who was a physician from Harvard, said this in the 1950s. There's a compound in the body called homocysteine that, unlike cholesterol, has been definitively linked to cardiovascular disease. This may come as a surprise to some of your listeners, but to this day, elevated cholesterol has not been definitively connected to heart disease. And despite that fact, some of the most toxic drugs on the planet, the statin drugs, are being dispensed like candy. Well, unlike cholesterol, 3 B vitamins, or deficiencies in 3 B vitamins, has been linked to heart disease via the toxic chemical homocysteine, and that's vitamin B6, B12, and folic acid.
Well, that makes sense. Everybody knows muscles need that, and autoimmune systems need that, and that's why they know in dentistry that if you have dirty gums, that's where a lot of the infections get in and actually cause you to then get an infection in the ventricles. But what's the main causal effect of that chemical? There's the heart always beating from the time, you're born to the time you die. Obviously, it's the muscle, kind of like your calf cramping up if you don't have enough of the stuff that's in bananas.
Well, if you don't take those 3 B vitamins, if you don't have enough B vitamins, which unless you're supplementing, it's very difficult to get because B vitamins are depleted by processing. If you don't have those B vitamins in your diet or somehow getting them into your system, you are playing with fire, especially as it regards the heart. But the problem is, Alex, you can't make any money on the B vitamins. The B vitamins are cheap. They're cheap to produce, and they're cheap to take.
In fact, the longevity products are packed full of it, correct?
Packed full of it. That's one of my favorite things about the B vitamins, or about the longevity products, is not only are they packed with the B vitamins, but the B vitamins need to be taken with liquids. And if you take the Beyond Tangy Tangerine or you take the Ultimate Classic, you're getting them in liquid format. The B vitamins are also excreted readily from the body. So not only does that make them non-toxic, but it makes it vitally important that you're continuously saturating your tissue.
And in closing, I'm now hearing Dr. Dina Dell and others demonizing B vitamins like they're bad.
If I ever hear Dr. Dina Dell demonizing B vitamins, I will personally fly out to his studio in California and rip him a new one.
Oh, I hear it all over the news. I hear there's all this talk about B vitamins, how great they are. It's ridiculous.
That's a terrible, terrible thing. The B vitamins are vital for health, and most people don't get anywhere near enough.
All right.
Get on those longevity products. That's the best advice I can give you.
InfoWarsTeam.com, folks. Get involved. Thank you. Pharmacist Ben Fuchs. Okay, we're 8 minutes into the third hour on this live Friday edition. I think one of the biggest stories going right now is not just Egypt, but more and more admissions that the world economy is sliding into depression. I had Nomi Prinz, former Goldman Sachs managing director, on yesterday, talking about the fact that from all the evidence, she believes we're in a global depression. And on top of all of this, the Drudge Report is linked up at the top of drudgereport.com to our article, Obama's blocking of new power plants triggers nationwide blackouts. Fury as hospitals hit with outages while post-industrial collapse of America accelerates. And there's a new article out, Fury builds over blackouts caused by deindustrialization of America. And this is what Bob Chapman, formerly with military intelligence, at a time the biggest private silver and gold broker, biggest newsletter until he retired a decade or so ago, and he's been back fighting harder than ever, exposing the globalist, predicting what would happen in Greece and Ireland and then Spain and then here. Just amazing information always from Bob. But Bob always talks about the SEC allowing Bernie Madoff, Ken Lay, all these crooks to run wild, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan. He always talks about how big government is about the insiders being able to engage in business and shutting down their competition. And what an incredible example in the last 3 months, Obama issuing more than 500 waivers, the first to McDonald's with its hundreds of thousands of employees, where they don't have to get insurance for their employees, but their competition, the hamburger joint next door, owned by Sally's soccer mom or Joe Sixpack, they do. Well, now another huge example of that has been in the news is they're now making it secret small business filings for federal contracts in the U.S., and it turns out they have a secret blacklisting where they're only basically giving it to mega corporations, completely illegal. Congress is starting investigations on both of those. But the big fat cherry on top is 3 days ago, this is reported on by the Washington Examiner and Reuters, Obama gave a waiver to General Electric, the biggest builder of coal-powered plants in the world and also one of the biggest operators. They gave General Electric a waiver. They don't have to put in all these new carbon taxes. And then in Paul Watson's article, it details Georgia. It details Texas, Kansas, South Dakota. Just in the last year, all of these power plants that were already operating shut down, power plants, this is outside of law. They don't have any new law to do this. Congress didn't pass the Kyoto Protocol. And now they're blocking the opening of a $3.2 billion clean coal-powered plant in Corpus Christi. So we're having rolling blackouts all over the nation, California, North Carolina, Texas. Hospitals are off. I mean, this is getting insane. We're having to get our power from Mexico, where General Electric's got plants that aren't under the controls. I mean, this is amazing to see this happening. Bob Chapman, your take on it.
I think it's very typical of what you see in a corporatist fascist society. It's as plain as that. It's a concentration of power and control. And within industries, there might be only 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 producers of whatever it is, whether it's a service or a manufactured item, or in this case, power itself. And that concentration of power makes these large corporations that control government ever more powerful in controlling government. Another example is, most of you can't remember because you weren't born, but back in 1948, well, actually in 1946, they had the Nuremberg war crimes trial. And out of that came a lot of things. And I won't go into the gory details, but one important thing that came out, that Thyssen and Krupp, the 2 big steel companies, were supposed to be broken up and they were supposed to be done away with by 1948. That never happened. And here they are setting up a plant. They merged since then. They're setting up a plant in the United States. Now, and they're going to produce steel, of course. Now, that's another good example. These people were major, really major supporters of Adolf Hitler. And they've been in business ever since, in spite of the edict by Nuremberg. And I don't know why, but they are. But this is the kind of thing that Alex is talking about in relation to large corporations and concentration of power.
Now, according to all historical measurements and common sense, this is illegal. This isn't just monopolies and combines, oligopolies forming. They're coming in, and Obama has said, I will bankrupt any new coal-powered plants. But that isn't really true. He'll bankrupt those who aren't basically financing him, who aren't allied with Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, and General Electric. And now you have the head of his economic council in there doling out the trillions of bailout money, being the former head of General Electric, one of his biggest campaign contributors, and now they're setting policy And the Economic Council head instructs Obama to give total waivers to General Electric, but not their competition. I mean, if that isn't insider criminal activity, what is, Bob? I mean, what do you call that legally?
Crime. You know, there's two acts which go back to the beginning of the 20th century, which handle the monopoly policies that were abundant at that time.
Sherman Antitrust, and what's the other one?
Sherman and I forget. But anyway, there's two of them. But Sherman's the most well-known one and the most used. And it was started because of the monopolies of the oil companies, but it spread. And those laws are still in the books. But if the AG's office in Washington doesn't want to prosecute, well, they just go on their merry way doing what they're doing. And, of course, what you're talking about, instead of adjudication and investigation, you're talking about expansion of monopolization instead of calling in the Sherman Antitrust Act.
Well, we saw that in 99, getting rid of the Glass-Steagall on finances. So this is not, they always say, leave us alone, we're free market. It's not free market for General Electric and Goldman Sachs to publicly lobby Obama to sign on to Kyoto that they're on record helping write so they can selectively use government to shut down all their competition. That is just brazen criminal racketeering.
Well, it's simpler than that. They just call up and say, look, this is what we want. And so fix it. And that's the end of it.
And so now my power prices in the last few years have doubled, and they bought up the city-owned power plant and shut it down, and they're creating artificial scarcity, Bob.
That's right. And when they take over water in countries where they have before, they do the same thing. They let the system break down, and they close one of the systems up, and then you only have one system to choose from, and the price of water just went from $20 a month to $220 a month. And they do it with everything else. And these toll roads that they're thinking of putting in, that they've been trying for years to put in now, same thing. The tolls will start off at $1. 5 years later, they'll be $15. It's looting.
Well, I mean, here in the U.S., it's on record. That's why we've been defeating it so far in many areas. They openly take taxpayer money, build the roads, and then give the roads to usually Spanish, German, or Dutch companies for whatever reason, Centra of Spain and others. They give them the road, and then on record, the state stops fixing the old free roads, and then they start putting toll roads on sections of the old road to make you use the toll road. I mean, it's diabolical.
It certainly is. And as long as the public allows it, it's going to continue. It's as simple as that. The people have got to try to do something about it. And we hoped in the last election that the House and the Senate incumbents would lose more seats. They lost 14% instead of the normal 6%. Are they going to throw out half the people in Congress at the next election? I don't know. I'm not optimistic because too many people just don't get it. They complain about the bill, but they know they got to pay it, so they say, oh, the heck with it. And they forget to go to the polls and get rid of the guy who's responsible.
Well, Bob,
he voted for it.
Bob,
Why did he vote for it? Because he got paid off.
So many libertarians, and I have a libertarian view of life and believe that it is the way to go, but not if the people who claim they're libertarians don't understand the players. These mega 100 or less super corporations are bigger than most governments. They're taking the place of government with government power. They're using government power to shut down their competition. That's not privatization, is it?
No, it's the end of sovereignty. And it's deliberate. Not only for the additional profit, but also the control of the people. It goes hand in hand. It's very subtle. When Adolf Hitler came into power in 1933 with about 42% of the vote, he was split three ways, basically. And he immediately started doing what you're seeing going on in America today. Same thing. And he built his internment camps, what we call them concentration camps, and for the people who didn't agree with him. And had people who had money he wanted to get rid of so he could take their money.
Yeah, so many...
This is exactly what's happening in America. In fact, I think what we saw in the 1930s in Italy and Germany was just a testing ground, a precursor to what we're getting today. They think they got their act together so they can shove it down our throats.
I agree with you. I want to get into the $100 trillion the banksters want. They announced a few weeks ago at Davos. What you think is most important on the economic front, and then phone calls with Bob Chapman. Stay with us. We were just having a snowball fight outside during the short break, and of course I defeated them with a snuck attack, the crew. I'm sure they're going to get me back. Al Gore says these cold temperatures are global warming. But if you'll pay him a tax and let him and his buddies shut down all the power plants that they don't own stock in, everything will be just fine. But here's to Al Gore. I'm going to throw this at the camera for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. We'll see if I can hit it. Here is to Al Gore and all of the global warming fraudsters. Here's what I think of you. Ha-ha! Ha-ha! Dead on. All right, pretty ridiculous. Trying to have some gallows humor here. Bob, there's got to be a way to reverse this, because the Republicans are now driving a move with some of the Democrats to reinstate and make the Patriot Act, which is completely unconstitutional and admittedly aimed at the American people, permanent. And sure, folks are awakening, but is it fast enough? Because as you said, the globalists admit they're trying to bring in tyranny to secure all their ill-gotten gains.
That's a hard one to call, and if I had to make book on it, I'd say the odds are even money that they'll win and get what they want. And because of the control of the House and the Senate by the power behind government with money, which you've talked about so often, you have the situation where if 70% of a congressman's constituency said, we don't want that act, and you vote against it, he'll do it anyway, because he's getting paid to do it. These people aren't paying him. He doesn't think the salary he gets comes from them, comes from the federal government, and then all of the campaign contributions with the payoffs, and, of course, the lobbyists and so on. And so you're going to have a hard fight, because you needed fresh blood in those two houses in order to neutralize the power of the people who were there. And I don't think you've got enough power change, we'll call it, to stop them.
Well, Bob...
And that's why that last election was so important. We only can get to so many people. And, there's a vast amount of people in America. Well, let's say 150 million adults. And not everybody's listening to anything. And so it's very difficult, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was made permanent. And I'm not a defeatist, just being a realist.
Well, you've said many times you believe we're going to win. It's just going to be a hard road.
And maybe that's one of the battles that we'll lose along the way. There'll be others that will win. Like, sooner or later, the manipulation of the markets is going to end, because the physical gold and silver market are going to upset the paper market, which is the futures, the derivatives, the options. It's going to blow up.
Now, Bob, I want to break that down. I want to break that.
People are going to lose their money.
I want to break that down when we come back from break and get your view on some of the more important economic developments we're seeing. But briefly, we haven't talked in a week with what's happening in Egypt. Now, our supposed government admits that they funded the rebellion. The rebellion was already there. The folks have a real reason to be mad with the 30-year dictator Hosni Mubarak. But now they've brought in IMF, World Bank policies that have caused food prices to go up. The people are very hungry. But clearly now they admit it's part of their stratagem to destabilize the Middle East. What's your view on those developments?
Absolutely. But I think there's a bigger reason. And I think that reason will come out later. And it's to deflect interest about the problems that America and Europe have financially. The municipal problem, I mean, how many are going to go bankrupt? How many are going to default on their bonds? Will legislation be passed to allow states to go bankrupt and wipe out the pensions and the benefits of the people who worked all their lives for them, or at least in part. And then you have the funding by the Fed of the Treasury purchases. They say they're going to purchase $900 billion by April or June, whichever date. They said both different times. When I know that they started doing what they're doing last June, and I think from what Bob Diamond of Barclays said at Davos, they've already spent $1.7 trillion. And so we got coming through the pipeline, which is reaching us now, is the inflation caused by QE1 and stimulus, and now it'll be followed by the same stimulus, which will come to the economy, causing inflation for stimulus 2, which was the Tax Act, which was loaded with pork, $862 billion, along with another set $1.7 trillion. And is QE3 coming behind that? Of course it is. And you mentioned earlier, Alex, at Davos, they talked about $100 trillion. That's $10 trillion a year.
Bob Chapman is our guest. We're going to come back from break, get more into the economy and where he sees gold and silver going with the manipulation that's happening and your phone calls. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Bob Chapman is our guest. We're going to be taking your calls at 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. We'll get you up and on the air. Bob, you were trying to get into the economy when the break cut us off, but clearly the depression is intensifying. Give us your current analysis and your forecast on what's coming up and what you think is most important in the economy right now.
Well, 2 years ago, I said that we were in an inflationary depression, and the lady that you had on said essentially the same thing. And that's the first person I've ever heard in the last 2 years that said that. But what we've had is people keep on calling it a recession. It's not that. It's just that we have more inflation than deflation, and that's what's holding things up for the moment. And that's not going to last forever. I mentioned the three problems, the third one being in Europe. And that's going to manifest itself before the year is out. I did see that over the last few weeks, the Chinese and Japanese, who have their own set of problems, have galloped in with U.S. Treasuries, and they have purchased Eurobonds from those countries that are in trouble, giving a respite to Germany and all the other solvent companies in the countries in the Eurozone. But that's not going to be permanent. There's a whole bunch of reasons why that's happening, but we're still going to have this manifestation of three different problems coming together in the second half of the year. GDP growth is only going to be 2 to 2.25%, in spite of another $2.5 trillion being spent by a combination of the Fed and the administration, and they'll probably do it over again. And as I said earlier, they're trying to draft proposals on this $100 trillion, $10 trillion a year for 10 years, to flood the world with all kinds of currencies. They expect this thing to go on and on and on. And I don't think they can keep it going, because what it's going to lead to in almost every currency is hyperinflation. And that's when you have inflation, but the value of your money is decreasing in purchasing power so quickly that you got to get rid of it. And so you go out and buy anything, usually food and clothing, so that you'll have something for your money rather than lose it because so much of it's been printed. And this is the direction that we're headed in.
Bob, it's like we're in a school bus driving towards a cliff, and we can see the cliff, and we know what's going to happen, and we want to get off the bus, but the bus driver is basically asleep. And we're just here desperately trying to shake the American people awake. Or it's more like much of the bus is asleep, the passengers, and a madman is driving the bus. And so bottom line, we're in a race against time to expose the globalists and that they are the authors of much of our misery, or they're going to get away with what they have set up and what is unfolding. I mean, how long can they keep the hoax going that the recession ended in June of 2009.
Well, Paul Craig Roberts and I said the same thing on your program a long time ago. And they will continue to do what they're doing as long as they can because they have no exit. There's no way for them to get out of the box. They're trapped. And they're going to have to bring this thing to the conclusion that they want. And whether that conclusion will stick or not remains to be seen. I don't think it will because you and I and others like us are doing what we're doing on talk radio and on the Internet. And so they're continuing to do what they're doing. When will the dollar blow up? When will we have a crisis? I don't know. But I do know it's coming. But you can't put a date on it. It's not going to happen as quickly as even I thought. You know, when we talked about this before, Alex, it was 2 years ago, and you were thinking in 6 months, and Mr. Roberts and I were thinking in terms of a year and a half to 2 years. Well, we're already there, and we were both wrong. So they have a lot of longevity out there. You got to play the game. And how you do that, if you have wealth, if you have money, is to buy gold and silver-related assets because it's the safest place for you to be.
Well, to be clear, going back to 2008 in October and open talk of war in the streets and the financial terrorist holding Congress hostage and threatening total collapse if they didn't write them a blank check, I was just, seeing what they were doing and saying it looks like they're gearing up for something. But basically, they just ignore the depression. They ignore people losing their jobs. They just keep saying everything's fine, everything's wonderful as the world revolts, as this global depression unfolds. And it looks like Western Europe and the United States will go last. But undoubtedly, you look at the mathematics, there's no way to get out of this derivatives black hole, even if we give the banksters 100 trillion more of tax money, and they leverage it with fractional reserve banking out to 1,000 trillion or 1 quadrillion. I mean, could that possibly fix things? But the bankers don't want to fix it. This is a global consolidation move.
Well, you've asked two questions, and you essentially have answered them. And that is, they'll take it out as far as they think they can and get away with it. And they've done this over and over again. So they know what to expect. They know the different ways that things could go. And they're prepared for that. Yes, they do not care one little bit about any people anywhere. Reflecting back, they want to get rid of 60 to 80% of the people in the world. You've said it 100 times that I've heard you. And that's a reflection of what the CFR and the Trilats and the Bilderbergers have said at their meetings as well as in their writings. And so, no, they don't care about people. Not at all. The destabilization that's going on in the Middle East, what's going to happen? They're going to replace people by, like Mubarak, but somebody else that they control. But they got there. The thing that they wanted, which was to get people looking at the Middle East demonstrations and riots and take their mind off of the basic and fundamental economic and financial problems that Western Europe and the United States have. That's what it was really all about. Destabilization comes second. And how far will it go? Will it destabilize Yemen and Jordan and maybe even Libya or Syria? Or we don't know. But I don't think it's going to go too far because I think they've made a mistake. And the big mistake was the reaction of the people in the street, not so much in Tunisia, but in Egypt. They were not there to start a fight with the police or with the military. They got along just fine until Mubarak's goons came at the behest of Bill Clinton, and they started beating people up and throwing firebombs and so on. But everybody knows what they're doing. So Mubarak has done the wrong thing. He's screwed. He's out. The people who they're offering up, they control them all.
Well, Bob,
you've got to get people from the people to run.
Well, Bob, that's something that a caller pointed out last hour, and I've seen it myself. Our own media is admitting that Mubarak has police dressed up like demonstrators doing violent things that will be unpopular with the general public. How can our controlled media tattle on their own dictator about something they undoubtedly trained him how to do when our own Western governments have been caught over and over again doing the same thing?
And that's correct. And now we found that out again. So Mubarak is dead meat. And that's great. I mean, who needs a dictator? Give these poor people a break. They're making $2 a day, and they have starving to death.
Sure, but that domino...
It doesn't matter what religion they are. I mean, they're human beings.
But Bob, that domino falls. Great, Mubarak gets kicked out, and they replace him with the Muslim Brotherhood, which it turns out the CIA basically is funding to do this. And I'm all for the Palestinians getting a better deal and all that. But why would the globalists be doing something that by the Arabs is seen as positive when we know that Israel and the United States are wedded at the hip?
Well, again, you're going back to what I said at the beginning. It's a disinformation campaign to keep people's eye off the ball in Europe and the United States. That's the main thing that they're doing here. All of the other changing of leadership, changes of horses, so to speak, they can take care of that. They're not worried about that.
Bob, I want to go...
own almost everybody.
Sure, I want to go to phone calls.
Like you just pointed out.
I want to go to phone calls, but I want to bring this up to you. You were on with Lindsey Williams last week, and I've got to hand it to Lindsey. 3.5 months ago, he did say that Ken Fromm, the former head of operations Atlantic Richfield, told him, look at the Middle East to be used as a blow-up, as a distraction for what China is going to do and for the economic implosion here and dollar devaluation. He said, watch oil start running up. It was $65. It's now $103 and going up today. And he's got that other CEO source. Looks like that's some pretty good intel he's getting.
Yes. The only thing, I don't know how far oil will go. I don't know whether they'll dare take it to 150 or 200. But the crude in Europe is over $100, and in the United States it's 90 to 91. And maybe it can get to 120. I find it hard to think that they take it higher than that. China's really going to, and Japan are going to get whacked really hard because almost all of their petroleum products are imported. The projection was there. It's basically correct by Lindsey. I don't think it's going to go that far, and I don't think they're going to try to blow up the dollar or any other currency at this time or in a short period of time. I think it's going to last a little bit longer. And what leads me to believe that is $100 trillion. I mean, they're saying, hey, let's do this for the next 10 years. And we don't care if anybody doesn't have any buying power left. We get all our money in gold.
Plus, they get the trillions when they are first issued to the banks. Then they get to loan it out at very high interest. I saw a CNN report earlier this week that blew me away, Bob. I don't know if you saw it. It was on Monday. But I didn't know the highest credit card APR now in the U.S. is 59.9%. I thought it was 32. They've now...
I did too.
That's credit card reform, is to give the bankers our money and then they jack up interest rates to 59.9. I mean, not even loan sharks go that high.
That's right. And so what do you have? You have a criminal syndicate. And they got legislation, they got what they wanted, and they're just screwing everybody. It's typical. And until there's a major change in America, and probably in Europe and England as well, this is going to continue. But I think the end game, even if it continued for 6 months or a year or 5 or 10 years, 5 or 10 years like they're talking about, it doesn't make any difference. They're going to fail.
Well said, Bob. Let's take some...
They're all living on borrowed time, and that gives us time to inform every single person who speaks the English language in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, everywhere in the world. All the Europeans speak English now. And what's going to happen is everybody's going to say, okay, finally, they're going to have their demonstration and say, the game's over. All those guys, we want them on trial. If you don't put it on trial, we'll overthrow the government. And that's the way it's going to end up.
And that's what the globalists are doing.
Will go to trial, and some of them be hung, like our ex-president.
Well, that's
too bad Lyndon Johnson's already dead.
That's what
the Bay of Tonkin incident, or FDR for lining the ships up in Honolulu so that the Japanese could bomb them when they had broken the Japanese diplomatic code in 1937.
Well, Bob,
that's one of the things that set me on this journey. for over 50 years.
Well, Bob, I want to go to some phone calls now, but that's what the globalists are doing. They see when revolution is coming, they're tracking it, and then they go ahead and trigger it early so they can then try to put their people in, but that trick's only going to last so long. Chris in Tennessee, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Alex?
Good.
Hey, I just wanted to comment on two things. The first one was I was listening to your show when Kurt Haskell was on earlier this week.
Yes.
And I just work in retail temporarily, and I was talking to a TSA agent who came in. He was buying some stuff, and I asked him if they had some body scanners at our airport, and he said, no, not yet, but he's hoping to. And I said, well, why is that? Those are unconstitutional. And he said, well, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. We got to have those for security. I was like, well, actually, sir, I do know what I'm talking about. I know the Constitution, and being a former military policeman in the United States Marine Corps, I think I know what a search without a warrant or a preemptive search is. And then he just kind of did the whole "don't confuse me with the facts" thing. I was like, well, we got to do that to protect ourselves. And I think it's kind of sick how they brainwash some of these.
Well, what they're doing
employees.
is they're building an army of quasi-cop thugs who were trained to violate people's personal space and Fourth Amendment, and now the TSA is rolling out on the streets of America. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and just looking in his eyes, I mean, I felt like I was talking to someone who was not aware of common sense or logic. It was almost as if I was talking to a robot, I mean, ironically.
Well, they fire the ones that can think, and they're building an army of brown shirt thug goons. How did your conversation with him end? Did he kind of bug his eyes out at you that you dare challenge his kingship over you?
Yeah, he pretty much rolled his eyes and said, well, that's what we got to have to protect ourselves. And if you're in the military, those people are crazy. And I was like, well, I started paying attention to what's really going on a few years ago after I was already in. And last time I checked, there wasn't any, Muslim terrorist blowing up things that got in. It wasn't John down the street. It was some guy who was led on, like the underwear bomber, by a Department of State agency.
Well, I appreciate your call. Bob, what do you think about the ABC News report 2 days ago that Anwar al-Awlaki, who admittedly works for the Pentagon on record, who runs the Fort Hood shooter, the underwear bomber, the shoe bomber, the Times Square bomber, was emailing and in control of a woman at an airport in England to carry out terror? It's admitted this guy's CIA, and he's out there just recruiting these patsies. I mean, this is so transparent.
They just don't care. They become so arrogant. You see the same thing in banking and Wall Street. The same attitude. The transnational corporations. We don't care what you think. As long as you can't get legislation through with tariffs on goods and services, we're going to do what we want and keep all our profits offshore, unless you let us bring them back at 5.25%. It's the same syndrome. They don't care. And you saw the challenge by the district court to the health care reform. They want to jump over the review court and go to the Supreme Court. Why? They own it. They're just going to rubber stamp it and run it through. The control is in their hands. They bought almost everybody.
That's dangerous in history when you've got this much hubris, just with corrupt groups running absolutely wild. But truth is the antidote, and hubris always ends in a big fall for tyrants. And this Humpty Dumpty's already fallen, and all the king's horses and all the New World Order's men can't put their New World Order back together again. It is a certainty. As Brzezinski said last year, the people are now waking up to their system, and the elite are in trouble. People know the Federal Reserve's the enemy. Well, we got to a lot of calls in the first hour. I should have gotten to more of them now. We got loaded phone lines. But I'll be back Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Let's quickly get to some more for Bob Chapman. Let's talk to Dan in Wisconsin. Dan, you're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Alex. Hey, I just want to say great job to you and your crew. You guys do well.
Well, it's not that great of a job. This stuff's all right out in the open. That's what's so crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is crazy. It really is. I do research it. So I'm getting up to speed on everything. But I do have a quick question for Mr. Chapman. This has been on my mind for a couple of months. I own a little bit of silver, and I guess this is regarding precious metals for investment purposes. So let's say you invest in, silver or gold or something right now. When the dollar finally does blow up, the currency collapses, what would you cash it in for, your precious metals? Or would you, I guess you could use silver for barter, in an emergency. If you cashed it in, for, say, silver goes up quite a bit, doubles or triples or something, you could cash it in before the dollar crashes and make a lot of profit. But then if the dollar crashes, your dollars...
No, you'll cash it in for whatever the new currency is or whatever the dollar's denominated in that time. So it basically stops your dollar devaluation. Bob, explain it to him. We get this question a lot.
Yeah, I do too. And you don't know what you're going to exchange it for. It may be a new currency. It may be the old currency. You may not want to exchange gold and silver for anything. Particularly if you have some kind of a current income. I mean, everything is not going to stop. 1/3 of society will never go into the ditch, so to speak. So you really got to wait until you get there to find out what moves you're going to make. And that's why Alex is on the air. He has all these people on the air like myself who talk about these things, people who subscribe to the International Forecaster, who get the news before anybody else. And that's how you stay in touch with everything.
Yeah, it just gives
you know then what to do.
It gives you more options. Appreciate the call, Dan. Great question. Terrence in Florida, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Alex. And I'll take your reply off air. And Bowers versus DeVito, 7th Circuit, 1982. The government has no duty to protect nor provide law and order. Texas high school student faces arrest and imprisonment for cussing because the local authorities have decided that pointing guns and arresting people is less violent than cussing. If every local government employee and elected person is nothing more than a Mubarak, a little dictator in their own little world, how can we expect the federal government to change when the local government...
Well, no, that's why the feds have promoted this culture of tyranny as if it's a good thing to shift our culture from liberty to tyranny so they can have this criminal society. That's what tyranny is. I mean, is that your question, Bob?
Oh, my question?
Go ahead, caller.
My question was, how can we expect the federal government to change when the local government is a bunch of dictators running loose?
Well, we got to show them that we're boss and take our governments over through the elective process and by educating the people generally in the principles of liberty, as Thomas Jefferson said, and then tyranny will vanish like phantoms at dawn. Appreciate the call. Bob Chapman, a comment.
No, I think you covered it. Let's go on to the next one.
We're out of time, Bob, but it's always great having you on. If folks want to call and get a free copy of the International Forecaster, 800-686-2237. They can also call and get a great deal on one of the gold francs and get a free year subscription, $159 value at 800-686-2237. Bob, Lord willing, we'll see you again back here live in the third hour next Friday.
You surely will, and thank you very much, all of you, for listening.
Yes, absolutely. Retransmission starts now. See you back Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.